Hi, I'm John Tuck. Now, today I'm going to talk a bit about my experience, my advice on how to lay the foundations for a successful business from the ground up. And I'll just share my screen with you, share my slides. This talk is really primarily aimed at startup initiatives, but it may provide some useful information for businesses anywhere up to small to medium-sized enterprise. I'm going to just briefly introduce myself and my experience, particularly in a business context, and then talk a bit about the considerations for starting a company from scratch. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple of books that I found fundamental in the information they provided to me in the early stages, particularly the E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber, which describes exactly how to lay the solid foundations for your enterprise. I'll then go into Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich in a little more detail, and I'll explain what I learned from it. I'll then talk about the details surrounding planning, producing a business plan and pitching deck, and all of the things that you'd ideally need to consider from the outset. And I'll finish with a case study, the success that I experienced in one of the businesses that I started back in 2014, which was at one point valued at £50 million. So, and just find my. So who am I? Yeah, as I said, I'm John Tuck. I call myself a holistic energy scientist. Now, what I mean by that is that I have quite a good understanding of classical physics, quantum physics, chemistry, electrochemistry, and biology. I'm a business consultant, technical advisor, board advisor, and becoming non-exec director. I work primarily with startup companies in the energy storage, energy generation arena, and medical devices. I'm an energy consultant and materials technologist, and I'm an author of a book I published in 2017 called A Theory of Everything, Things I Wish I'd Known at Your Age. I wrote it for my children. I'm a spiritual mentor, life coach. I'm a Reiki master teacher, and I'm a chat show host and webmaster. In brief, I did my bachelor degree in physics, chemistry, material science, mechanical and manufacturing engineering in 1997, which is when I was first introduced to quantum physics. I completed my doctorate at the University of Oxford in mathematical computation surrounding energy modeling. I embarked upon my scientific career in 2002 in fuel cells and progressed to friction stir welding in 2006. Now, in 2007, I shifted career. I actually invested in a business coaching franchise where I learned a ton of stuff surrounding sales, marketing, web design, finance, event organization, and a lot of really useful transferable skills. As I mentioned earlier, I in 2014, I applied my new knowledge when I co-founded a company called Zap and Go, who produce supercapacitors. And 2017, I started writing A Theory of Everything, Things I Wish I'd Known at Your Age, which was published in 2021. I've worked in, most recently, intellectual property within the energy storage, and I'm a consultant and board advisor, non-exec director at my company, Silent Koala. So where did it all begin? I mean, I think, it was interesting for me to put this together because I look back and actually I was pretty entrepreneurial from a very young age. I started breeding rabbits and gerbils in 1980 when I was about 6 years old because I realized that I could significantly supplement my pocket money by selling the rabbits and gerbils to the pet shop. I then started in 1985. I was repairing friends' electronic toys and devices because I worked out that if you simply took it apart and brushed all the dust off and put it back together again, it would work. About the age of 17, I started doing car boot sales when I got my first car, and that was a lot of fun, wheeling and dealing. I saw myself as a bit of a Del boy at that time. I used to love being at the car boot sales and doing buying and selling. And throughout my first degree, I used to buy and sell second-hand cars because I realised that where I was at university in the north of England in Newcastle, cars were 3 times less expensive than they were where I was from in the south of England. So I could buy a car in Newcastle, drive it down to the south, and sell it for 3 times the price without doing anything to it. Um, when it got really serious, though, was when I was doing my second degree, and I became an independent consultant. So I was doing materials testing for primarily coatings companies, and really enjoyed that. Um, Fast forward to 2007, as I said, I invested in a business coaching franchise. Now that put me through an intensive sort of MBA-like training. It wasn't an MBA, but it gave me a lot of transferable skills. And in 2009, I became Chief Financial Officer for an internet recruitment company with £1 million turnover. Managed to increase the profit by 20% in 6 months. As I mentioned previously, in 2014, I co-founded a energy storage company. So this was really my first proper business experience. We started the company after having raised $125,000 on a crowdfunding campaign. And then it was consistent further fundraising and pitching to investors. As a result, we were featured on the Gadget Show and BBC Click in 2016, and we were awarded several fairly prestigious awards between 2015 and 2016. In 2018, I became a technical board advisor to startups, one of which is now going through its A round funding and doing really well, based out of Chicago, Illinois. And in this year, 2024, I invested in a non-exec director coaching program, which more importantly took me through an understanding of the finance at a higher level, which was extremely useful and filled some of the gaps that I was missing. So, where it all began in terms of the influences that I had and the books that I read in order to increase my knowledge and give me a better chance of success. I've had many influences, and I've researched to the nth degree, but some of the most fundamental in the early days were the likes of Jim Rohn and Joe Vitale, Bob Proctor. Jim Rohn, I think, actually recommended 2 of the books that I'm displaying here, The E-Myth and Think and Grow Rich. So the E-Myth I'll describe a bit later, briefly. And as I said, we'll go into a bit more detail on Think and Grow Rich. Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clayton is also a very useful book, which primarily describes how to how to get into a position of positive equity and to remove all debt, and how to then proceed to using that knowledge to increase your wealth. So yeah, how to lay the solid foundations for a successful startup business. So where do you start? I mean, for me, you start with your vision. What is it that you want to achieve? And more particularly, what are you passionate about? Because for me, at this stage, it's not so much about the money. It's not about starting a business for the sake of starting a business. It's about starting a business that excites you and that gets you up in the morning and that enables you to navigate the tortuous path of ups and downs with vision and passion and determination. I mean, any business, particularly startups, follows a very tortuous path, and one of the key elements of it is really to hold that vision in your mind and, in a sense, not worry about the hows or what ifs or attract to yourself any negative forward projection, um, but to take everything one step at a time. Something in business we call chunks of elephant. How do you eat an elephant? Well, one chunk at a time. So really setting small goals and just working towards them consistently. I mean, as I said, maintaining an unwavering confidence that you will find a way at every step on the path and that nothing is going to stop you. Um, it's, I think also to consider at this stage is that it's not necessarily about the end goal. It's more about the journey and how you enjoy the journey. Um, Classically, it's explained that if you're not making mistakes, you're not moving forwards. So it's about how you handle those mistakes and what you learn from them and what you subsequently apply in the future. No point beating yourself up for making mistakes as long as you've learned from it, as long as you've corrected what you're doing in the future. One other thing I think is critical in business and in life, indeed in general, is something I learned from Bob Proctor, and that is that making decisions is one of the most important elements of life. It's a binary decision. It's essentially how the brain works fundamentally. And what Bob Proctor said was make decisions quickly and change them slowly. And I believe that this is based on the principle of your intuition. So your intuition usually kicks in immediately and tells you what you should be doing. Hence, making decisions quickly and then changing them slowly. Then the other thing I'd say is that don't be afraid to shoot for the stars. Don't be afraid to be very bold with your vision, because anything is possible if you believe. And as they say, if you aim for the stars, you might hit the moon, but even that is a lot further than if you were aiming for sort of Salisbury or not Norwich or Nottingham or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I think that's really what I'd say fundamentally. And I'll leave this slide with a quote attributed to Henry Ford, who says, "Whether you believe that you can or you believe that you cannot, you are right." Okay, so moving on to the E-Myth. I mean, what Michael E. Gerber starts with at the beginning of this book is, who do you think is most likely to want to start a business? The manager, the entrepreneur, or the technician? Now, clearly, It's not a trick question, but the logical answer is the entrepreneur. So that's the E-Myth, because what he explains is that in majority of cases, it's not the entrepreneur, it's actually the technician, because the technician is sitting there looking up, thinking, I'm doing all the work, yet he's getting all the money for it. What's that all about? Surely I can do all the work and get all the money for myself. And that is essentially where the challenges begin, because essentially the technician has no experience of business, has no idea how to set up a business. But with this book, The E-Myth, the technician, or anyone indeed, can learn the basics on how to set up a successful business, because it's speculated that 80% of small businesses will actually fail before year 5. So this book will give every technician the basic information on how to lay solid foundations for their business. Now, this is an incredible book for anybody. Think and Grow Rich, and I don't necessarily attribute rich to financial wealth. I think rich can mean a plethora of other things. So what does Napoleon Hill say? He says, truly, thoughts are things, and powerful things at that, when they are mixed with definiteness of purpose, persistence, and a burning desire for their translation into riches or other material objects. So the starting point of achievement is desire. So Napoleon Hill says that desire is the burning fuel that is the first step towards success. And the stronger that desire, the more likely that success will be. He says the second step to achievement is faith. So faith means having confidence, trust, and an absolute unwavering belief that you can achieve something. He says that if you have a nagging doubt in the back of your mind, or if you're just going through the motions of pretending that you believe, it won't work, because your subconscious will know your doubts. One of the things I teach a lot and have written about in my book is how to remove negative blockaging points, how to influence your subconscious negative belief systems, and to change them into positive belief systems. So number 3, auto-suggestion. So auto-suggestion is a term which applies to all suggestions and all self-administered stimuli that reach the mind through any of the 5 senses. And he says that no thought, whether it be negative or positive, can enter the subconscious mind without the aid of the principle of auto-suggestion. So this is really inspiration and imagination, and how to take an idea and move forwards with it, and put the balls in motion. Now, part 4 of the process he talks about is what he calls specialized knowledge. But even back then, Napoleon Hill wrote this book in the early 20th century. And even back then, he recognized that much of what you learn at school is not going to be any use in the accumulation of money. So knowledge alone will not attract money unless it is specialized, organized, and intelligently directed through practical plans of action to the definitive end of accumulation of wealth. And as I said before, I don't I don't really advocate that anyone base their desires on money. For me, money is just a tool to facilitate whatever it is of your desires. Um, I'd recommend that you focus on the thing, the desire, the intended result, and what I find is that the money just happens to facilitate it. So, principle number 5 is imagination. He says this is the workshop of the mind. He explains that imagination is literally the workshop of the mind where we devise and create our plans. And here the impulse and desire come into your vision in the form of required actions. Napoleon Hill said that man can create anything he can imagine. The 6th part is organized planning. So he says a goal without an organized plan can be viewed as just a dream. His 7th principle is that of decisions and avoiding procrastination. I think, again, Bob Proctor said that it's better to make a wrong decision than not to make a decision at all, as long as you learn from your mistake. The final thing that is advocated by Napoleon Hill is that nothing of what you've achieved in the process during the previous 7 points will be of any use at all without persistence. So those are the 8 principles. He also talks quite a bit about the influence of the people that you hang around with or that you have in your life. So he says that if you want anything in life, then be it boats or wealth in general, or the arts, or anything you desire in your life, then it's important the people that you hang around with and the groups that you engage with. So if you want to be an actor or a film star or something, then hang around with that group of people. If it's happiness and harmony you want, then find some happy and balanced people to hang around with, such as perhaps Native Americans or indigenous tribes. So, what do you want to think about? Again, a goal without an organized plan can be viewed as just a dream. So, where I'd start with this is to ask yourself, what's the ultimate goal for the business? I mean, generally speaking, in most recent business thought, it's going to be trade sale or flotation, or you might want to visualize a family business that will keep going for generations, or an everlasting entity. And this can be assimilated perhaps with the likes of Japanese business culture, for example, where I understand that they don't have a 5-year business plan, they have a 100-year business plan, which is why I think that Japanese businesses are so successful. So plan to start small. So when you pitch to an investor, if you go to an investor with just one product, they'll probably walk away. But at the other end of the spectrum, if you go to them with 3, 4, 5 products, they will also walk away because you're not focused. So the best way to start is between 2 or 3 products or services, ideal for investors. You want to have a look at what you want your company structure to look like. So what's advised is that you construct an organizational chart. So you have sort of CEO and then marketing, sales, administration, finance, and then you have the manufacturing or business people and staff below. And initially put yourself in each one of those boxes, and then you can begin to fill them with the relevant personnel when you get there. And the advice is that when you can afford 50% of a resource of a staff member, then hire them, because that then creates what's called a vacuum. It means you then have the impetus to and drive to create the revenue in order to be able to pay your staff. So you want to look at what is your product or service, and who is your target market? At what stage are you in being able to deliver your product or service? So if you're manufacturing or you have a product, then what is the technology or manufacturing readiness level? I'm not going to go into that in detail, but generally speaking, most investors, angels, will be interested in investing at what is TRL, technology readiness level, around 3 to 4, something like that. Worth looking up if you're considering manufacturing. So you want to think about what value you're providing. So what will your clients gain from you? What's the benefit of your product or service? And who is your competition? You know, how do you differentiate yourself from your competition? And also, is there a possibility to work in collaboration? I think that conventional business models will change significantly in the coming years, and I think that we'll move away from competition and more into collaboration. So how can you collaborate with others? How can you share the wealth in a win-win situation? But at any rate, developing your what is called your unique selling proposition is a big part of setting up how you aim to equally apply that to your sales and marketing plan. So with your sales and marketing plan, sales and marketing very different. Marketing is how to generate the leads, and sales is how to sell to the leads. So an understanding of your route to market is going to be very useful at this stage. So once you have a clear idea of those elements, then you can begin to look at building your business plan. Your business plan should be really no longer than 2 or 3 pages once condensed. I mean, it can be longer. It can be a lot longer in terms of internal business plan, but anything you're going to supply to investors or the bank manager, for example, should really be a condensed version of that, and at the end should include a financial model. If you've got a product in mind, then it's probably in this time now probably worth looking at an intellectual property strategy. Although again, I'm not convinced that that's going to be useful moving forwards with more collaboration and open source and stuff. But certainly in the business environment now, intellectual property strategy would be really very useful. Yeah, and from that you can then produce your pitching deck for investors. And again, keep it simple. Maximum 2 bullet points on each of the above points. Yeah, so that sort of concludes my my overview. If anyone's got any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me. I think I'll give my details at the end. I'll be happy to elucidate or expand upon any of the points that I've made. But as I said, I'll end with just a brief overview of one of the successes that I've had um, uh, with a company I co-founded in 2014. So one of the things I did as a result of reading Think and Grow Rich was um, I created a wish list for my next career. So I was very specific bullet points, which was 2 pages of A4 long, included what I wanted to do, the arena I wanted to operate in, the type of people I wanted to do it with, the level of responsibility I would have, the travel that I wanted to do, and the remuneration, the salary that I wanted to govern for doing that. And um, by 2016, I revisited that list and I realized I could tick every single bullet on both of the pages, which for me, although I knew it would that would be possible, for me just cemented the fact that you can really achieve whatever you desire, if you go through the processes that I've described. Yeah, so thanks very much. Yeah, I mean, as I said, if you got any questions or any want any advice or support or anything at all, please feel free to reach out to me, John at silentkoala.co.uk. You can have a look at a bit more detail on what I'm up to from a business perspective at silentkoala.co.uk. And you can have a look at my book, A Theory of Everything, Things I Wish I'd Known at Your Age, on atheoryofeverything.co.uk. Yeah, so thanks very much. I hope that was useful. And I'm sending you tremendous energy for your enterprises. Thanks very much.